Hello, R users. My name is John Kulas. I'm a 20-year professor of industrial and organizational psychology and a 10-minute hanger on to the slim thread that appears to be my internet. I, I'm really hoping that we don't have a repeat of what happened last week. That was kind of out of nowhere. I wasn't expecting it, but the internet kept dropping and my diagnostics here are all over the place. So it looks strong and then it looks weak. So my modem checks out. I'm hardwired now, but I don't know. I'm kind of skeptical. So my normal level of just day-to-day anxiety, which is about here, not that it matters that much, but it's just something looming over your head that you don't want to have to think about. But I'm a little worried that our internet's not going to hold out on us tonight here. So bear with me, please. But thank you for showing up. So I hang out every week here on this channel at Tuesday at 7 o'clock Eastern for roughly an hour, as long as the connection holds up. And occasionally some compatriots and compadres and co-authors and collaborators and any other C word you can, well, not any other C word, any other nice C word you can think of to explain my friends here. They pop by and they hang out with me, and the intent of this is if there's anyone out there that's interested in designing their workflow such that you're authoring and doing your analyses all within the same platform, we're here to help with that because we have some experience with that now over the course of, for me, it's been probably 8, 9, closing in on maybe 10 years of using R, not just for my primary analytical platform, but to also author things within R. And I was a professor for 20 years full time. If I had my druthers, I never succeeded in this, but I would have loved to have been able to affect change in a social science oriented department to the extent of not presenting statistics as something uniquely different from the broader research methodology kind of perspective, but fully encompassed, not just in terms of considerations for research design, but also in terms of execution, in terms of how you write these things up. I think students in the social sciences, in my experience, I'm projecting a little bit here because I've only tried this in very small samples with advisees that I had a closer relationship with, but it makes sense to me that if we were able to present platforms such as R that might look a little scary to social sciences student population, if we were able to present that as all part of the same process and you're not just doing analyses, you're executing the full project within it, I have a sneaking suspicion that we might have a little more open-minded acceptance and positive attitudes towards it. That's the hope anyway. So that's the philosophy of why we're here. So I wasn't able to get that done as a full-time professor, but I'm hanging out every week and with the hope that maybe at some point this general idea of these reproducible research standards, literate programming, and just data science is kind of a thing might all converge and other people, and I know there's plenty of other people out there doing this and people that watch this probably are currently doing it, but I I want it to be more kind of common, I guess, within the soft sciences and the soft sciences that do use quantitative methods. So that's why we're here. And so there's always kind of priority that's going to be placed on other people that come by and they want to do this and maybe they have some questions. So ideally, the reason we're here in this interactive every Tuesday session is to put some other heads together on issues. Now, increasingly, that's probably not as important because we have these agents that are now available to all of us that help us problem solve. They're not human agents, but they're artificial agents. And so the last few weeks we've been looking at that. This week I'm very excited. I hope my internet does hold up because I am not a, I'm a, I'm a Gen Xer, and that might be part of it, I guess, to not to attribute generational effects to just a person's proclivities, but I'm having a hard time um, fully jumping on board the AI train, even though I know that it, like the internet, it's not going to go away. It's there, and we need to use it. And so I really am trying to kind of be more open-minded about it. But at the same time, I am so excited that this week we are moving past AI, at least temporarily, and we're going to look at something that's more traditional in terms of the intent of this weekly session, which is something that's more directly applicable to um, the broader documentation process of using quantitative platforms like R. And so we're going to check out this fantastic Quarto extension that I've been using for the last 5 weeks. I'm so excited about it just because I've been using it and haven't really been able to talk about it because we've been focused on AI integration. But these these title slides that I've been putting together the last few weeks, there's little subtleties here that I haven't been able to do over the course of, well, if last week was week number 85, I haven't been able to add these icons and these little images, these little additions to the text, these little superfluous kind of accents. It's something I used to do all the time when I was authoring in R Markdown, the ecosystem of packages that kind of is a predecessor of Quarto. But because of the processing and pre-processing of these documents, there's workarounds that we can do, but the direct specification of things like icons and emojis, they're not as easily integrated within Quarto as they were within the R Markdown system, and that has to do with kind of this extension beyond just the R engine to other possible mechanism and other possible routes to generate and render these documents that we're interested in, and getting it to Pandoc, the software that translates what we write into a PDF or an HTML file or a doc file. So ICONIFY was the Quarto extension that I stumbled across, and it just so happens that one of the benefits of using the ICONIFY package to do these accents, to add these accents, things like emojis and icons, well, first of all, there's over 200,000 of these things in the Iconify repository. The philosophy behind it is fantastic. It's put together by this guy from Estonia and sounds like a really cool guy. And then there's a prolific Quarto contributor as well that he's also in Europe, I believe. But he's put together a Quarto extension that accesses those, and we can also put them on our title slides. And so it's probably does, it may not be that meaningful to many people, but it's going to be meaningful to some people. And it is meaningful to me that we're able to access these images, icons, emojis, but do more with them than we can with the way that I've been interacting with those sorts of elements previously. So anyway, let's before we get into Iconify, we are going to do a recap of what happened with our experience with AI. So let's get to our Bullwinkle transition here.
Well, we know that Mount Flatten is full of obsidianum, and that's why it floats in midair. But why does it stay in one place? Our heroes rigged up a jet engine to fly the mountain to Washington, but after 8 hours of flying, they found themselves in the same spot they started from.
We haven't gained an inch, Bullwinkle.
Well, let's look on the bright side.
What's that?
We haven't lost one either.
Then our friends made one last attempt at moving the mountain. All night long they flew, and as day began to dawn, pulled into a cloud bank.
Top secret stuff, you know. Nobody must find out about Mount Flatten.
But instead of resting after their flight, Rocky and Bullwinkle decided to stand guard, and so huddled together in the clammy fog, wide-eyed and alert, while, I said wide-eyed and alert.
Oh, yeah, sure.
We got to get Pasquale back here. He's good at reining me in on those Bullwinkle recaps. He says, "Cool ass, those are too long. You need to cut them down a little bit." But I'm not going to do it unless Pasquale shows up. So Pasquale, you got to show up and rein me in. So last week was the 5th week that we looked at AI integration within these IDEs, within these integrated development environments. Now we, by tradition, as psychologists, our introduction to R just by discipline that happen to be R Studio. It's just very pervasive and very common and very accessible. And so we first started integrating within R Studio, and we did that with GitHub Copilot. And so GitHub Copilot was something that is accessible and helpful, not just within the IDE itself, but also you can go to GitHub, and as long as you're logged in, you can use it there in an interactive kind of chatbot kind of format. And then 2 weeks ago, we took a look at this newer IDE from Posit called Positron, and actually there's an ICONIFY icon here that you can see, the little proton guy. That's not the positron symbol. I didn't, even though there's over 200,000 symbols on ICONIFY, as someone who's relatively new to this, I'm not having a great deal of success navigating those 200,000 icons. So I did look for the positron icon. There is one, but I don't know. I kind of like this atom thing with a moving thing. A positron is an element. I don't know what type of element. I don't know. Neutron, positron, neutrino, all that stuff. I'm not a physicist, not a chemist. I don't know what that stuff is. I just know positron is a word that's relevant in that world. And so I thought that icon was close enough, given that I couldn't find the positron icon. So any posit people, my apologies. I'm sorry. I'm not fully representing your fantastic product as well as I probably should, or with as much integrity as I probably should. That being said, Diego, when we first took a look at positron, he immediately went to an extension called SuperMaven. And SuperMaven, it turns out, was kind of I'm not going to say it was a mistake or a fortuitous mistake that Diego made finding it, but it turns out that it was eventful because we both, and I've talked to other people in the interceding weeks, and it's not just Diego and I, but other people as well are finding SuperMaven integration within Positron to be really nice, smooth, fast, intuitive. I think is the thing that I like the most. Is there's a lot of user experience kind of decisions that seem to be natural within SuperMaven. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and take a look at the last 2 weeks, and you can see how to access that. The last 2 weeks on this channel and on these weekly Tuesday sessions. On the next slide, I actually have links there to connect to those. But one of the things we wanted to do is we wanted to challenge SuperMaven with the GitHub Copilot assistant that we had previously tested out using R Studio. And so the first time we tried this, it was a little bit confusing to us. And one of the reasons it was confusing is because there is a link hidden here. And if you want to access the slides and access that, you'll see what I mean. Posit did kind of a neat trick on their help pages, and I just stole this link from their help pages. So I directly linked to their URL, which actually links you to Positron, the IDE. And so when you hit this link, it's going to ask you to open Positron, and it'll walk you through at that point, connecting to GitHub Copilot through what they call the Positron Assistant. So that's all a mouthful. But so we did that last week. We connected to Positron Assistant. We enabled, Positron Assistant, but it was powered with GitHub Copilot. There's a couple of options in terms of how to power it. Currently, the GitHub Copilot powers the auto completions and the back and forth that you can do from scripting via the use of comments, but there is not a chat bot enabled using GitHub Copilot through the Positron Assistant currently. And so SuperMaven does have that. And again, another reason maybe to just kind of fall back on SuperMaven. If you're interested in checking out Positron Assistant as powered through GitHub Copilot or as powered through Claude, which is the other current option, you can just follow that direct link. If you follow that direct link, just first make sure to download Positron on your computer, because again, what this link is going to do is it's going to look for that. It's going to look for Positron and then pull it up and connect you to the wizard that gets you access to the assistant. Again, a little, I'm not going to say convoluted. I'm sure it makes a lot of sense and it works, but it was something that took a little effort to actually find and use. The Super Maven extension, on the other hand, it seemed to be a little more smoothly integrated. And so what we did last week was Diego made a couple of prompts and I just stole those verbatim, put them, so he ran those via Super Maven. Super Maven gave us some nice plots. I stole that code verbatim, put it into the Positron Assistant as powered by GitHub Copilot, and we got similar plots. They weren't exactly the same in terms of output, but the information was similar. I think the feedback we got was that they liked the Positron Assistant plots a little better. They looked nicer, but again, we didn't do a lot with it. We just kind of had competing future overlords of humanity there, working on. I think we used the Iris data set, and so the other thing that's probably important to do here, because I've been chopping up some of these weekly Tuesday sessions that we do, especially if they drag on for multiple weeks. I've been going back and chopping them up and making them a little more digestible for if you want to do something focused. Like there's a session on creating APA papers. There's a session on using some of these extensions. I don't see myself chopping this up because we were coming at this much more from the perspective of novices here. So we don't know what we don't know yet about all this stuff, and a lot of people don't. Obviously, it's all very new. But in lieu of chopping up and doing what I've been calling a snipped video, I thought we could just spend a little bit of time on general experiences here. So we started off 5 weeks ago, 6, I guess. We started off just kind of exploring GitHub Copilot, honestly, without knowing what GitHub Copilot was. So we'd heard of Copilot, and that's a Microsoft AI engine. GitHub Copilot is a little different than that. They have the same seeds of origin apparently, but they diverted at some point. And the GitHub Copilot is, the intent of that AI is for code completion. And it's different from the Copilot assistant that you might get if you're operating with Microsoft products like Word or Excel, PowerPoint, etc. I honestly, I'm not sure how Copilot works within those because I don't use those, but GitHub Copilot, for me, using it within GitHub itself, I'm comfortable with that. Using it within my coding environment, I found it to be not helpful, but it's not helpful in a very specific use case. So again, I'm a little different in that when I interact with R, when I'm using R Studio, even Positron at this point, I've tried to play with it a little more the last couple of weeks. But when I'm interacting with these IDEs, I'm doing more writing than I am analysis. And so the AI integration for me as a writer and not a coder, not someone that's doing a lot of data analysis at this point, it just gets in the way. It's distracting. It's hallucinating. It's giving me stuff I don't want. It's reading stuff from higher in my script file and just replicating it. So just saying, oh, you said this before, maybe you want it here as well. So I'm going to keep it on and I'm going to keep using it. But at this point, I would say I think I'm comfortable saying that it's definitely a lot more useful for traditional quantitative or just purely analytical purposes than it is for what we're doing on these weekly sessions, which is focusing more on the communication aspect of data science. And so the communication aspect, boy, it's not something right now that I have found a way to connect with it to make it helpful. It's been more it's been more interfering. Now there's a little corner of my brain, my professor brain, I guess, that's saying it's new, and you know how new things go, and you saw this as a professor, so many students having frustration and early exposure to things just not being 100% into it, and you as a professor saying, be patient, please give it time, please be patient, it'll come. So I'm kind of trying to do that. It's tougher to do it to myself than it is to tell a student to do it, but I'm going to try. So I'm going to try to keep it going for a little bit here, but it does make sense that there's more effort. I'm guessing that the concentration and the focus of people that are enabling this is on code completion. It is on the quantitative aspects. Eventually, that there will probably be more help for me that is, I would assume, more aligned with the general Microsoft Copilot assist, which might help with something like writing crafting a document. Right now, it's definitely more helpful in the quantitative coding aspect, and I find it very helpful there. So when Diego was making histograms and he made some box plots and I don't know what else, scatter plots, it's great for that. So it's great for code completions. It's great for kernels of code that you can maybe tweak later and adjust as you might want to. So GitHub Copilot, it's free if you have a university affiliation. There's also a free trial if you want to do it. The price of entry absent that is not crazy. I think it's $10 a month as of today, so July 15th, 2025. The code completions within your scripting, that's there and immediately available once you connect to GitHub Copilot within your IDE. If you want to have that kind of back and forth chat, currently there's a package that you can access within R Studio called Chat R. There's a link there to the package itself. These YouTube links, those just go shamelessly, I guess, back to our presentations that looked at enabling GitHub Copilot and looked at accessing Chat R. The same thing here with this link. That's to, I think, last week's session. And so the GitHub Copilot, if you're within Positron, it can enable those code completions as well. But currently, the chat back and forth flow, if you want to use Positron Assistant, you're currently going to need a different AI engine for that, and Claude is the one that's currently set up, so that there's a link there. If you want to follow that hyperlink, you can see what Claude is all about. And then again, if you're in Positron, I think what Diego and I would both say is maybe just wait on the Positron Assistant for another couple of months yet, because that Super Maven integration is pretty slick. So the other caveat, I guess, if you're going to be a heavy user, most of these have limits set on them at the different points of entry in terms of your subscription and your access to these AIs. It's not limitless, so there's going to be, there's even for the GitHub Copilot access that I have, I believe. Of course, I didn't read the fine print as closely as I should have, but I believe there's a limit on the number of queries that I can have, and I think there's another limit beyond that. Now, the way that I'm using this, I'm not gonna approach those limits, so I'm not really worried about it. But if you're a heavy user, keep in mind that the Super Maven access, Diego and I love it, but we're not using it multiple times a day either. And if you are going to use it multiple times a day, there probably is a accelerated price point that you're going to have to pay for that. Okay, so that's AI. We survived, I guess. The machines didn't kill us yet. They gave us nice, pretty graphs and figures, and I appreciate that. So that was nice. It was also nice to play with Positron. So Positron came out. There were kind of people that got early access to it over a year ago. and they kind of did a slow rollout with it. I believe it just kind of made its initial public like, yep, this is good. It's out there now and we're supporting it quite recently. Um, and I, I eventually, I think I'm probably going to move over there, but I'm not quite ready yet. As I mentioned earlier, I have been taking projects that I have going on and doing some work in Positron with those. It's still not completely comfortable to me. I just have R Studio set up so exactly the way I want it. It's not gonna be an easy leap for me, but I think eventually I probably will make that leap. Okay, so today, yay! Today, no more AI. Look at this cute little, all full of herself, have all kinds of self-confidence girl here on the microphone. So today we are going to take a look at the Iconify package. And so Iconify, there's four, five if you count the logo in the bottom right, but four big images here. Two, this Mr. Colonel Clank emoji guy, that's just an emoji. Pink Panther was just some empty space, and of course I can't have empty space, so I decided to put him on there. I guess it's maybe not the original Pink Panther because there's this guy down here, so it's maybe like the cousin or something. I I actually have access on my TV to a Pink Panther channel, and my TV recommends things to me. And so today I was putting off work. Turned on the TV. I went through my mail. I finally went through my mail, but I turned on the TV, and the TV had recommended channel, and one of the channels was Pink Panther. I had a moment of hesitation before I turned it on because I'm like, I love all these old cartoons, but when they try to rehash them or bring them up new, like there's always some little tweak that they do that I don't fully appreciate. I'm kind of a cartoon snob like that, and so I had a little premonition. I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this, and I'm like, it's the Pink Panther. It's got to be okay. And he talked, so I turned it on. It was a newer thing. I don't know what era it is. 2000s maybe. It looked like. Oh, it's starting to rain now. If my internet goes out now, it's actually justifiable because it's literally storming out here really bad. But anyway, Pink Panther talked. Like, what what executive made that decision? That was a terrible decision. Should not have the Pink Panther with any voice whatsoever. I made it about 2 seconds. I don't even know what his voice was like. I just heard him talk. His mouth was moving. He was talking. That was enough for me. Anyway, these two images down here, the pinwheel and the good luck Japanese cat guy, those are Iconify images. And so these, they're already showing a couple of features that are made possible with the Iconify package. One of them is motion, obviously you're seeing on the left, but the other one is sizing as well. So these would normally just be rendered as emojis in one of my documents, but I was able to size them on this slide really, really easily. And so there's so many kind of neat things we can do with these. I'm really looking for, I hope my internet holds up with this storm here. So I'm really looking forward to exploring this a little further just because I've gained such an appreciation for this package and again the philosophy behind Iconify itself as kind of a project. And so let's go ahead and take a look. So this guy, Mikhail, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Mikhail, I think that's right. He is a biostatistician, and he does a lot. He makes a lot of these extensions. I'm not sure if he works for Posit. I haven't cyber creeped him or anything like that. I just know it's a name and a GitHub repository that I'm very familiar with because we've now used several of the things that he's come up with. And I appreciate them as someone who is using R as an authoring platform. So the stuff he's providing is making what I do a lot easier. Now, we had we're going to focus on Iconify, but I just to contrast it a little bit, I should probably mention how I've been using emojis and icons previously. We had a couple of week sessions on a couple of different ways to access them through Quarto, through R Markdown, to generate PDF documents, to generate HTML documents, Word documents. Um, I had been using the old package system. So there's packages that facilitate access to these. One of them is called Emo, and I don't think it's currently being supported, but it's a Hadley Wickham package. Let me see if I can pull it up here. And he's left it up, and it works great. I use it quite frequently. Had been using it quite frequently. I am going to start using Iconify. I think probably exclusively now. Yeah, at I'm not so great at actually navigating GitHub either. I sometimes get stuck. Sometimes get stuck within someone's repository here. Let's see. Here we go. And there we go. So this is something that hasn't had any active